How well do we know about Pakistani art? We know about our writers, our researchers, journalists, and poets who have often served as interpreters of Pakistan's historical and contemporary issues. What we know a little less about is the contribution of our artists in our critical space. I researched the evolution and production of historical and contemporary art in South Asia. Art from Pakistan has questioned and challenged artistic and social norms in powerful and provocative ways. Our artists have dared to redefine historical accounts on their own terms, and in doing so, they have broken out of the shackles of dogmatic and stagnant representation of art and culture. Now, they've achieved this over the decades with the use of different kinds of media, art forms, style, technique, method, and by innovating in different art genres. This is a glass mosaic. It's called the Red Lotus, and it's made by Pakistani-born contemporary miniature artist Shazia Sikandar. Red Lotus over here tells us a story about 16th century Mughal India. You're looking at Baz Bahadur, a sultan, who's enjoying a private, nice moment with his consort and later wife, Rupi Roopmati. Tragically, Bahadur lost his wife during a battle against the Mughals, and his wife killed herself to avoid capture. Now, most of us are not aware of this story from our own folklore, and it's based on real events. It's probably because we have grown up with the more popular of Mughal stories, such as Anarkali and Prince Jahangir, and how the Taj Mahal was made by Shah Jahan from Mumtaz Mahal and so. Even I did not know about this until I came across this work in New York, where it was displayed at the Armory Show in 2018. The Armory Show is an exhibition that has been happening since almost a century, and it displays powerful and innovative works from all around the globe. So in a way, the artist has tried to dig the story out of our South Asian heritage and crystallize this for a global audience in class. Now, when we take history and we redefine different narratives from it, in a similar manner, our artists have also spoken about social norms in Pakistan in unexpected but bold ways. For instance, almost 35, 38 years ago, in 1983, a group of women artists and activists, they started an underground secret meetings of sorts, like a movement sort of thing. And what emerged from their secret meetings is the Women's Artists Manifesto, basically a 7-point document that demanded freedom of expression, the right to create whatever you want to create, any style, any form, especially for the woman artist, and a removal of ban on censorship of arts. Now, this manifesto was kept a little hushed up because of security measures back in the 80s. However, it spread, no surprises there. And it played a central part in shifting the way art played with its protagonist. For instance, back in the 80s in art schools of Pakistan, especially in the miniature art departments, students were required to historically recreate or just copy from historic Persian or Mughal miniatures like these. Very male-centric miniatures. Miniature painting, for those of you who do not know, is a style of painting where you execute tiny little details on handmade paper, manuscripts, illustrations, scrolls, that sort of thing. What happened is that a graduating student in 1984 at the National College of Arts in Lahore painted women, contemporary women from Lahore, not from our history books, playing games in a courtyard. And this is a very bold move from what we had been painting. We were making imperial rulers on their carpets, and now suddenly we were centralizing our women. Now, as these works came out, more artists were, let's say, encouraged to redefine their history and find their own identity. A few years later, Shazia Sikandar, miniature painter from Pakistan, came out with this work. It's called The Scroll. And it's a work of miniature. It still has little details. It follows a format, but it's radically big. It's 5 feet long. And it depicts contemporary men and women from Lahore residing in the 90s. If you're able to look closely, you might see that there is a figure painted in a white dress, her face hidden away from you, from the audience, the gaze, and long hair. And she's repeated multiple times in the painting. This is the artist herself. Now, before this work came out, we do not have any self-portraits of miniature painters in their works. In fact, we do not even have records indicating that there were any women miniature painters to begin with in South Asian art. So imperial men on their carpets and on their horses with their swords were replaced by contemporary men and women from Pakistan. We began to paint victims of different kinds of abuse. Salima Hashmi painted a poem for Zainab. Zainab was a victim back in the 1994. She was brutally beaten at the hands of her husband. The story garnered a lot of story. Her pictures were everywhere. And the purpose of the artist over here is to not just let these sort of horrific events from our shared experience stay in the news for 24 hours and scandalize us, and then we forget them, but so that art is used as a social vehicle, as a stance on the plight of such victims. Hashmi was also one of the signatories of the Women's Artist Manifesto. Now, we've also painted men, and our artists have taken taboo subjects head on. This work is by veteran artist Anwar Saeed from Pakistan. He has been painting since the 1970s. He basically paints intimate relationships between men, male bonding, friendship. A lot of his work is basically homoerotic in nature. This is one of the safest works that I can show you for the sake of this talk. You always have the internet. His works are provocative, powerful, amazing. So there's men, there's women, there's historical representation, contemporary representation of gender. There's also the depiction of pain that rests on our collective national consciousness. Blood that has been spilled in Pakistan over the decades in the name of sectarian and ethnic strife and differences has been painted at the rooftop of the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. Now, the Met is one of the most sought after art places in the world. Contemporary miniature painter Imran Qureshi, he was given this space where he painted all of this red that you see as a figurative hope that maybe some rain is going to wash these stains away. If you look closely, these are basically tiny flowers. So the idea of finding some sort of fresh start, some beginning, some new hopes, some beauty at the end of every violent cycle that we go through as a Pakistani nation. Now, all of these amazing artworks that Pakistani artists have been displaying globally, where would you find them? You're not going to fly to New York to see these works in the exhibitions. Though if you do go, please go to the Met. They have some amazing works from South Asia, even from Pakistan, sculptures from Sawat, and pretty good works. Most of these works are either tucked away with the artists, or they're hanging in somebody's drawing room, or they land in the hands of foreign collectors as exotic South Asian objects, or they're just lying dormant and dusty in somebody's collection of some private person, some organization, or whatsoever. You wouldn't even find pictures of these works on the internet even today, although we have ideas and records of the kind of work that we have done. We have a very diverse history of art, but we have very little quality documentation. Fortunately for us, the way we access art, it's evolving. There are galleries in prominent cities such as Karachi, Lahore, Islamabad, who exhibit works on a weekly basis, public art events. Theme-based biennials, also known as biennales, have happened in Lahore and Karachi. A biennial is a contemporary art event that happens every 2 years and is usually set up in a publicly accessible place, such as a public park. This work was exhibited in Karachi Biennale at the Bagh Ibn Qasim this year. This tower of steel and metal tries to question the cost of urbanization and industrialization that our environment and our peace has paid. Art has also reached the zoo, where you can go with your mom and dad and your friends, take your children as well, and see something amazing. Even heritage buildings. When was the last time you went to Shahi Qila in Lahore or to Frere Hall in Karachi? What the artists are trying to do is engage you with history again, to relive our past through something as modern and mundane as neon lights. So art from Pakistan has cemented and immortalized our history, our collective ideas, our consciousness on this amazing level. I mean, who would have thought that manifestos made by women artists and activists would influence a generation of artists, or that we would be painting the rooftops of the most famous museums in the world? Or just so you know, most artists can only dream of landing a spot at the Met. Imran Qureshi was specifically commissioned to do this work. It's an honor that's bestowed on only one of the best artists. So please go to these galleries, visit, see these works. We know about those who write about us, about shared atrocities and experiences in our past, those who report and speak about it. Now, you know there are also those who draw, and they draw in amazing ways. They paint beautifully, but the purpose is to provoke in powerful and in amazing, bold ways. There are those who do this sort of work. These are our artists, and they are our Davids against Goliaths. It's very hard to redefine and to question and to defy. So let's support and celebrate those who do it for us. Thank you.